All right, so as we talked about earlier, you need to get ROMs, or that's what we generally refer to as, instead of calling them games, we call them ROMs. So where do you get some ROMs? As I mentioned prior, or if you didn't watch that part of the video, getting ROMs off the internet of games that you don't own is technically illegal. So I'm not going to show you where to get those because you technically need to own the cartridge. So if you want to get this Nintendo game, RC Pro-Am, you have to own the cartridge like I do. And so I have the cartridge, so technically I'm allowed to have a digital copy of the game. It's kind of a gray area, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because it can be a little, it's not clear. So if you want to get those trademark copyright games, they're not hard to find, put it that way, but I'm not going to show you where. But there are some places, some links here that I've included, and these will be in the description of things called ROM hacks. ROM hacks are actually a little more gray area as well, but I'll show you some of those. And then a couple places where you can get games that the creators have made for free. So you have all the right to get those because the creator has said you can use them. So here's a collection of some NES games on itch.io. It's a great website for indie games, and you can download some of these NES games here. Generally, if you just Google NES or SNES or Sega or whatever system you're looking for in the word ROMs, you probably won't have too hard a time finding things, but do be careful. Like anything on the internet, a lot of those sites are set up to trick you, and you start downloading things and you can download viruses and spyware and really mess up your computer. So again, I'm not going to show you those sites. I'll leave that to you, but the ones I'm including here are all safe places to go, and you don't have to worry necessarily about legality because the authors of these have said you're allowed to download them, and that's fine. Some of these you have to pay for, so because again, it takes a lot of talent and a lot of time to make these. So the creators want to be compensated, they want to be paid, which I don't blame them because it's a great resource that they're providing here, right? Here are some homebrew games. Homebrew can be a little more tricky on whether it's legal or not, but most people agree that these games are probably okay to download without worrying too much about trademark and copyright infringement. And then ROM hacking. ROM hacking is really cool, but it's definitely a gray area. So it's basically taking an existing game, a copywritten game, and then hacking it. So maybe you put Sega in a Super Nintendo game, or you put Sega in like a Mario Brothers game or something. Or here's a Yoshi game where they've hacked Yoshi, a Yoshi game. So these are really cool because they're kind of different in they present some interesting ways and some creative take on technology. It's considered, I think, in a lot of cases fair use because you're kind of redefining the work of art. But again, it's a little bit of a gray area. So I'm telling you to avoid the illegal stuff and just don't start downloading games that you don't own. It's a slippery slope, and you can get yourself into some trouble if you get crazy with that, particularly if you share them. That's where people really get in trouble, is when they start hosting them and sharing them. But once you have some ROMs, then like I said, you have your network set up on your Raspberry Pi, you have your Windows 10 Samba set up. All you'll need to do is go to your File Explorer. So I'm in File Explorer on Windows 10. You should have the network over here on the left, so you'll click on network. It should refresh automatically, but if it doesn't, you can press this refresh button here and it'll recheck your network, and then it'll go out and it's looking. You can notice here's a status bar. It's looking for open networks, and if you've installed Samba correctly on your Raspberry Pi, look at the prior steps. If you skip that or you don't remember how to do that, eventually what will happen is it'll pop up here. It'll say RetroPie. So I refreshed mine, so it can be a little slow depending on the speed of your network and how many things are connected to your network. I'm on Wi-Fi here, and as we speak, there's a lot of people using Wi-Fi, so it's a little slow. But you notice here's Raspberry Pi, or sorry, RetroPie. Let me go back. I want to go to the one that says RetroPie. Then I'm going to go to ROMs, and then here are all the different systems or the emulators that are included in RetroPie. I downloaded some NES open source or hacked or open, kind of retro hacked games, and then I just drag over the zip file. Now notice here it's going to say, generally when you download a file, it'll either be a .rom. If it is, you can just drag that over, or it'll be a .zip file. If you know what a zip file is, it's basically a file that's been zipped up, or it kind of packaged up into one. Don't unzip it if you know what that means. If you know how to do that on a computer, don't do that, because RetroPie is designed to unzip the games automatically. So just put the .zip file or the .rom file in the appropriate folder of whatever system you want to run, and reboot the Raspberry Pi again. You have to reboot it to tell it because you've kind of made like a system level change. And when you reboot, you should see a screen that has all your emulators for whatever systems you downloaded, and you can go ahead and start playing. Okay, so sounds like a lot of steps, and it really is. I've done this enough times where it starts, kind of flowing together. But I'll be honest, the first maybe 4 or 5 times I did it, I ran into some issues. I'm going to provide some extra resources in the description here to help you. But go ahead and give that a try, and then we're going to do one more step here of some things you can do to let's say you get this working and you're ready to kind of take this to the next step. Or maybe you've figured this part out already and you're looking at some more things you can do with retro consoles on the Raspberry Pi. So that'll be the last thing we'll look at. All right, so stay tuned for that.